In the previous episode, we delved into Jack Ma's rise to success and Alibaba's journey to profitability after surviving numerous financing challenges. Today, we'll explore the origins of Taobao, Alipay, and the birth of the fintech giant Ant Group. Plus, address the burning question: what caused the transformation of a dynamic and spirited entrepreneur into a man who has succumbed to reality? Let's dive into the details. In early 2003, Jack Ma held a secret meeting with several of the 18 arhats, including Toto's son, Shi Yufeng, Jane Zhang, and Zhang Peng. With seriousness, he revealed, "Team, I've got a new project brewing. It's top secret, completely under wraps within the company. You'll need to work on it off-seat, away from the office. Now it's crucial that you keep this strictly confidential. Not a word about it to anyone, not even your partners and family members. Otherwise, your termination will be immediate. So, knowing all this, if you're still up for it, here's the contract. All in English. Sign it." They signed it with no hesitation. Sun was assigned project manager. Come April, Sun led his small team of 9 to move back to the birthplace of Alibaba, Lakeside Garden community of Hangzhou, where they began working round the clock. Shortly thereafter, the SARS epidemic erupted, prompting all the Alibaba staff to transition to remote work. On May 10th, the project began to take shape. An employee named AK christened it with the name Taobao. Ma, along with Sun and others, raised their glasses in a toast celebrating its future success through a video call. Unlike Alibaba, Taobao wasn't positioned as a B2B e-commerce platform. It operated on a C2C model, facilitating transactions between individual consumers. The secrecy surrounding the project in its early stages was necessary because there was already a C2C behemoth in the Chinese market, known as EachNet. In July 2003, EachNet merged with the US firm eBay, a pioneer in C2C e-commerce, and was rebranded as eBay EachNet, dominating over 90% of China's online C2C market. In that same month, Taobao officially went live. Margaret Whitman, the president of eBay at the time, dismissed the potential of Taobao as a competitor. To outsiders, Taobao's battle with eBay EachNet seemed like a modern-day David versus Goliath showdown. However, Ma remained unfazed and proceeded to outmaneuver eBay with 3 strategic moves. The first strategic move implemented was the offering of free services. While eBay followed a fee-based business model in the US and European countries, requiring merchants to pay for uploading product information, Taobao took a different approach in China. It boldly announced that merchants could set up stores, publish product information, and conduct transactions on its platform without any charges, attracting a wave of small and medium-sized sellers. Initially, eBay viewed this approach to be unsustainable and in violation of business conventions. However, it soon became apparent that traffic reigns supreme. More users mean more traffic, and thus more revenue. Taobao later capitalized on its user base by selling advertising space and providing value-added services to merchants, resulting in substantial revenue gain. This strategy of outcompeting rivals with free services before implementing its charging model is highly effective. Ma's second strategic move involved establishing Taobao's dominance in the rural areas of the market, the small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, while encircling the market metropolis occupied by the industry giants. At the time, eBay had struck exclusive advertising deals with China's 3 major online portals, Sina, Sohu, and NetEase, preventing Taobao from advertising on these platforms. Faced with this blockade, Ma devised a counter-strategy. He meticulously targeted SMEs already collaborating with Alibaba, placing Taobao advertisements on their websites. Additionally, offline campaigns were launched, with advertisements strategically placed in various locations, frequented by people going about their daily lives, including subway stations, bus stops, and elevators. However, it was Ma's third move that truly secured Taobao's overwhelming victory: the introduction of Alipay. After Taobao went online, the user base continued to increase, but real transactions were limited due to the prevalent lack of trust among buyers and sellers. Most transactions were conducted face-to-face, typically involving cash on delivery. Sun, then CEO of Taobao, recognized that genuine development could only occur if a foundation of mutual trust was established between buyers and sellers. Thus, In October 2003, they unveiled the third-party payment solution Alipay. With Alipay, the buyer's payment went into a third-party account hosted by Taobao. Upon receiving payment confirmation, Taobao would notify the seller to dispatch the goods. Payment would only be transferred to the seller after the buyer confirmed receipt and satisfaction with the goods, effectively addressing the credibility concerns in the online shopping process. However, Alibaba faced another hurdle at the time. It operated in a regulatory gray area as it lacked third-party payment licenses issued by the central bank, which exposed Alibaba to certain legal risks. In early 2004, Ma attended the Davos Forum in Switzerland, grappling with the future direction of Taobao. After listening to a day of meetings, Ma suddenly had an inspiration. He realized that for China's e-commerce industry to truly develop, it must establish a transparent and fair credit system, and someone had to pioneer this effort. If Alipay didn't step up, someone else would. That very night, he phoned his team and declared, "Do a complete launch of Alipay immediately." As the call was about to end, he added, "If someone has to go to jail, let it be me."
If something wrong, the government not happy about that, if one body has to go to the prison, Jack Ma go to the prison.
The widespread adoption of Alipay acted as a catalyst for Taobao, propelling China into the era of nationwide online shopping. However, after a 2-year-long competition with eBay, Alibaba quickly found itself in dire financial straits once again. On August 17, 2005, Yahoo announced a monumental deal, offering $1 billion in cash and all of Yahoo China's assets in exchange for a 39% stake in Alibaba. At the time, such a substantial sum could make waves in any industry. The day the merger plan was announced, eBay realized that its prospects in the Chinese market were gone. A year prior, Goldman Sachs and other Series A angel investors had already sold their stake in Alibaba. With the entry of Yahoo as a new investor, Alibaba now had 3 major shareholders: SoftBank, holding 29.3% of the shares, Ma's founding team, holding 31.7%, and Yahoo, holding 39%. Yahoo's investment in Alibaba was akin to handing over its China operations to Ma, accompanied by an extra $1 billion. Ma took on the role of chairman of the board of directors at Yahoo China. Initially, many viewed Alibaba as the greater beneficiary in this agreement with Yahoo. However, in retrospect, this deal stands out as Yahoo's most astute investment, yielding returns hundreds of times its initial investment. In 2006, Taobao's total transaction volume surged past 16.9 billion yuan, capturing approximately 70% of China's online shopping market share. eBay withdrew from the Chinese market that year. Just 3 years prior, when Taobao first emerged, eBay held over 90% dominance in the Chinese market, sustained by internet users comprising only 1% of China's population. By 2006, China had reached a milestone with 52% of its population becoming internet users, marking an era of rapid internet expansion that underpinned Taobao's remarkable turnaround. By 2007, Alibaba reached 34.6 million registered users and maintained a robust cash flow. On November 6, 2007, Alibaba's B2B business debuted on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Despite this occurring 5 years later than Ma's original goal, this listing minted nearly 1,000 millionaires within the company and marked the largest wealth creation miracle in the history of China's internet industry. The original 18 founders, known as the 18 Arhats, now boasted individual fortunes exceeding 100 million yuan. However, just a few months after Alibaba's IPO, Ma unexpectedly staged a dismissal of key executives from their positions after they had contributed to the success of Alibaba. 4 Alibaba executives were suddenly relieved of their duties and sent to business schools for further studies. Among them were Sun, a prominent figure among the 18 Arhats, who played a pivotal role in establishing Taobao, Alibaba's co-Li Qi, CTO John Wu, and Senior Vice President Elvis Lee. Ma's explanation to the public was that they were overworked and in need of a good rest, suggesting that they would return rejuvenated and better equipped to contribute to the company after their studies. However, none of them ever returned. In reality, it appeared more like Ma was discarding his most trusted advisors once they had served their purpose. He believed that times had changed, and these company generals were no longer aligned with the evolving needs of the company. An Alibaba employee once revealed to a reporter that Sun burst into tears in the office upon receiving the email notifying him of his departure. In 7 years, Ma had completed the transformation from an emotionally driven entrepreneur who agonized over layoffs to a decisive and iron-willed titan of industry. In April 2008, Alibaba launched Taobao Mall, later rebranded as Tmall, to tackle the issue of inconsistent product quality and the proliferation of counterfeit goods on Taobao. Unlike Alibaba's B2B or Taobao's C2C models, Tmall operates as a B2C platform. A store on Tmall requires certification, a registered capital of at least 1 million yuan, an operational history of at least 2 years, and a deposit. These stringent entry criteria ensure product quality and cater to the demands of discerning buyers seeking high-quality goods. In 2012, Alibaba's B2B business was delisted from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange as part of the group's decision to relist the conglomerate entirely after consolidating all its businesses. This time, Alibaba opted for a listing in the United States instead of Hong Kong. On September 20, 2014, Alibaba underwent a successful IPO on the New York Stock Exchange. The same day witnessed a staggering 38.07% surge in Alibaba's stock price, catapulting Ma to the top of China's rich list. With e-commerce dominance established, Ma shifted his focus toward the financial sector. Between 2009 and 2010, Alibaba was embroiled in a large controversy. In June 2009 and August 2010, respectively, without the consent of the board of directors, Ma carried out 2 separate transfers of Alipay's equity from Alibaba Group to Zhejiang Alibaba E-Commerce Limited Company, then under the control of Ma and Simon Xie, co-founder of Alibaba Group. This effectively shifted ownership of Alipay from all Alibaba shareholders to the private ownership of Ma and Xie, causing dissatisfaction among the other major shareholders, namely SoftBank founder Masayoshi Son and Yahoo founder Jerry Yang. There was widespread belief outside Alibaba that Ma had appropriated Alipay, thrusting him into the center of public debate. In response, Ma clarified that both Sun and Yang knew about the equity transfer, and although discussions took place, no consensus was reached. He also maintained that while his decision was imperfect, it was the only viable option under the circumstances. It all began like this. In April 2009, the central bank mandated registration for third-party payment companies and introduced the Non-Financial Institution Payment Service Management Measures, also known as Order Number 2. At the same time, the central bank also explicitly stipulated that companies failing to obtain the license by September 1, 2011, would be barred from continuing to engage in third-party payment activities. This meant that Alipay was expected to obtain a third-party payment license, declaring their transition into legitimate operations and leaving behind the gray zone. Upon learning this news, Ma felt a mix of joy and concern. He was delighted that Alipay could finally legitimize its operations, yet troubled by a provision in Order Number 2, stating that foreign-backed enterprises seeking a third-party payment license required additional approval from the State Council. Reading between the lines, Ma realized that as Alipay expanded, it would be increasingly difficult for foreign entities to exert control over it. The only viable path to secure the license was to transition Alipay to domestic ownership. It was evident to Ma that SoftBank and Yahoo would not support his decision. Nevertheless, recognizing that there was only one viable course of action, Ma resolved to pursue it independently. Faced with the inevitable, Sun and Yang had no choice but to reluctantly acquiesce. In July 2011, Alibaba, Yahoo, and SoftBank reached a final agreement on the Alipay equity transfer, stipulating that upon Alipay's IPO, Yahoo and SoftBank would receive a one-time cash compensation equivalent to 37.5% of the IPO market value, ranging between $2 billion to $6 billion. Additionally, Alipay would transfer 49.9% of its pre-tax profits to Alibaba Group every year prior to its listing. After acquiring the license, Alipay further developed and expanded. By the end of 2013, it had amassed more than 300 million authenticated users and processed a staggering 12.5 billion transactions in that year alone. In buyer-seller transactions conducted via Alipay, funds would remain deposited within the platform for a certain period of time. Seeking to extend its services beyond mere payment processing, Alipay introduced Yuebao in June 2013, allowing users to earn interest on deposited funds and facilitating fee-free transfers. In October 2014, Zhejiang Alibaba E-commerce Limited Company underwent a name change to become Zhejiang Ant Small and Micro Financial Services Group Limited Company, commonly known as Ant Financial Services Group. It announced its commitment to offering inclusive financial services to small and micro enterprises as well as consumers. By 2020, Ant Financial Services Group rebranded itself again as Ant Technology Group, commonly referred to as Ant Group, reflecting its broader technological focus. Operating within the Ant Group's ecosystem are numerous businesses, including Alipay, Yuebao, Zhaokaibao, Ant Jubao, Sesame Credit, MY Bank, Ant Small Loans, and Ant Huabei, collectively offering a diverse array of services. Despite its comprehensive portfolio, Ant Group consistently asserts itself as a tech company rather than a financial one. Eric Jing, the current president of Ant Group, highlights that while payment, wealth management, financing, and insurance are prominent sectors within the company, they represent only a fraction of its comprehensive business ecosystem. The true foundation of Ant Group's operations lies in its core pillars of cloud computing, big data, and credit systems, which form the backbone of its innovative services, a topic we will delve deeper into later on. On July 20th, 2020, Ant Group announced its IPO launch, planning to list on both the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and the Science and Technology Innovation Board of the Shanghai Stock Exchange, also known as the STAR Market. By late October, the China Securities Regulatory Commission had approved Ant Group's IPO registration on the STAR Market. At its peak, Ant Group's valuation soared as high as 2.1 trillion yuan, establishing it as the world's most valuable unicorn company. However, this era of prosperity for Ant Group came to an abrupt end after Ma's speech on October 24, 2020. In the previous episode, we mentioned that Ma attended the second Bund Financial Summit, hosted by the China Finance 40 Forum, CF40, in Shanghai on October 23, 2020. On the event's second day, Ma delivered a 20-minute speech as co-chair of the UN Secretary-General's high-level panel on digital cooperation. During his speech, he made several startling remarks, saying, "Chinese banks still operate like pawnshops, because mortgages and guarantees are what pawnshops do," and "Supervision and management are distinct. Supervision observes development, while management steps in when issues arise. Our management capabilities are robust, but our supervisory capacities are inadequate." This speech marked the beginning of Ma's disappearance from the public eye. Just a week later, on November 2nd, Ma and two other senior executives of Ant Group were summoned by 4 regulatory bodies, including the Central Bank of China, the China Banking and Insurance Regulatory Commission, the China Securities Regulatory Commission, and the State Administration of Foreign Exchange. This meeting led to the sudden suspension of Ant Group's previously approved IPO. Subsequently, on November 6th, Ant Group initiated the refund process for A-share IPO subscriptions. Some say that Ma, having achieved monumental success, may have become somewhat egotistic, though his arrogance is not without merit. The e-commerce empire he pioneered has profoundly altered the way of life for China's 1.4 billion population. Alibaba now stands as the world's largest B2B trading platform, making China the dominant force in the global e-commerce arena. Perhaps he believed his influence had reached a point where he could enact change within the government by speaking boldly. When Ant Group was preparing for its IPO, Ma daringly proclaimed that it would be the largest IPO in human history. Undoubtedly, he felt immense pride in this achievement, having nurtured a fintech unicorn valued at 2 trillion yuan. Reflecting on Ma's entrepreneurial journey over the decades, despite numerous setbacks, he has always managed to turn the tide. He believes he has the right to make bold statements. Dealing with small and micro enterprises from as early as 2008, Ma has made criticisms of the many hurdles faced by these businesses in obtaining bank loans. He even boldly declared, "If the banks don't change, we will change the banks." True to his word, he spent the following decade doing just that. Some Western media claimed that Ma's sudden disappearance and the halt of Ant Group's IPO were repercussions of his audacious remarks, which might have irked top Chinese officials. On the other hand, many Chinese media outlets alleged that Ant Group itself was fraught with issues, pointing to its astronomically high levels of leverage and its regulatory arbitrage operating model. This sentiment was echoed following a speech by Huang Qifan, the former mayor of Chongqing, who revealed that Ant Group had extended over 300 billion yuan in loans with a capital base of just over 3 billion yuan, resulting in an astonishing leverage ratio of 100 to 1.
荒唐怎么放了100倍？
So, was Ant Group's lending leverage truly that high? Before delving deeper into this question, we must first distinguish between mortgage loans or secured loans and credit loans or unsecured loans. A mortgage loan requires the borrower to provide certain assets as collateral for the loan. This collateral must be valuable, resistant to depreciation, and easily marketable, such as securities, bills, stocks, or real estate. For instance, if a business owner, John Smith, wants to borrow 10 million yuan from the bank, they may need to pledge a property worth 12 million yuan, or an office building owned by his company as collateral to the bank. In the event that John Smith fails to repay the loan upon maturity, the bank has the right to seize and sell the collateral. On the other hand, a credit loan is granted based on the borrower's creditworthiness and does not require any collateral or third-party guarantee. Mortgage loans and credit loans each have their advantages and disadvantages. Mortgage loans provide high security with collateral, reducing the risk of non-repayment by borrowers. On the downside, they lack flexibility, as some borrowers with repayment ability may be unable to access mortgage loans due to a lack of collateral. On the other hand, credit loans offer greater flexibility, but their higher risk due to the absence of physical collateral typically results in lower credit limits. State-owned banks are required to comply with the Basel Accord, ensuring a minimum capital adequacy ratio and prohibiting the indiscriminate use of funds deposited by customers. To mitigate risks, a significant portion of loans issued by these banks are secured by collateral. When there is insufficient information about an individual's or company's creditworthiness, holding collateral provides the bank with a secure measure. In the past, pawnshops were even more adept at this practice. They would lend money against collateral worth more than the loan amount, and if the borrower defaulted, the pawnshop would seize the collateral. However, unlike banks, Ant Group has primarily offered credit loans since its establishment. In 2014, when Zhejiang Alibaba E-Commerce Limited Company, rebranded as Ant Financial Services Group, Ma articulated its mission to address the challenge of lending difficulties for small and micro enterprises in China. According to the United Nations, small and micro enterprises account for 90% of global enterprises, providing 60% to 70% of employment opportunities and contributing to 50% of global GDP, highlighting their importance globally. As Lao Tzu once observed, the natural order of the world takes from the excess to enrich the deprived, whereas the way of humanity often takes from the deprived to enrich the excess. Traditional banks and other financial institutions have historically favored larger enterprises due to risk considerations. Some large enterprises do not require financial assistance, yet banks readily extend credit to them, while small and micro enterprises in dire need of capital struggle to obtain secured loans. Some may question how Ant Group manages the risk of defaults given its extensive provision of credit loans. However, data indicates that it maintains a non-performing loan ratio of less than 1%. How did they achieve this remarkable feat? The answer lies in the transformative power of technology. Ant Group's IPO prospectus highlights its position as a global leader in scientific research, boasting 26 proprietary core technologies, 18 prestigious national and international awards, and over 26,000 patents or patent applications. Research and development personnel make up 64% of the company's 16,000 employees. While IPO prospectuses are often self-promotional, the remarkably low bad debt rate demonstrates Ant Group's expertise in user profiling and risk assessment. Alibaba and Ant Group's expansive product portfolio spans all aspects of daily life, enabling them to gather extensive user data for precise credit evaluation. For instance, if a customer spends 8,000 yuan monthly on platforms like Taobao or Tmall and has a favorable Sesame credit score, Ant Group is willing to offer a 2,000 yuan monthly consumer loan, allowing for the individual to leverage funds upfront and repay the following month. Similarly, if a merchant consistently generates 500,000 yuan in monthly sales on Alibaba or Tmall, Ant Group is willing to provide a 50,000 yuan loan without requiring collateral, reflecting its trust in the borrower's business potential. Ant Group's ability to navigate credit loans is harnessed through Alibaba Cloud, and the vast array of user data they collect. From individual spending habits to business financial transactions, from residential addresses to social networks, Ant Group has comprehensive oversight. In the age of technology, data is the new oil. With this understanding of the broader landscape, Ma's statements at the Bund Financial Summit take on added significance.
金融的本质是信用管理，我们必须改掉今天金融的当铺思想，要依靠信用体系的发展。
Now let's delve into assessing Ant Group's leverage. Former mayor of Chongqing, Huang Zhifan, disclosed that Ant Group conducted a 300 billion ABS business with only 3 billion in capital. ABS stands for asset-backed securities, which involves converting assets into tradable securities. Simply put, Ant Group deposits 3 billion in capital into commercial banks, which then lend funds to Ant Group at a leverage ratio of 1:2 or 1:3. As a result, Ant Group gains access to 9 to 12 billion in funds at its disposal. Take an average of 10 billion for simplicity. Subsequently, it then lends out this 10 billion to its users and merchants, using these loans as the underlying assets to issue ABS. Upon selling these securities, Ant Group can obtain 10 billion in cash to repay the loan from commercial banks, enabling it to retain the 3 billion capital in the bank, and once again lend cash at a 1:2 or 1:3 ratio. This cycle continues, allowing Ant Group to lend out the money, issue ABS, acquire cash, repay the bank, and lend. As the cycle repeats, Ant Group could lend 100 billion after 10 repetitions and 300 billion after 30 repetitions. However, this algorithm poses a problem. The 300 billion that is repeatedly generated after dozens of cycles represents a concept of flow. The leverage in the flow dimension differs from that in the stock dimension. Stock dimension leverage refers to the ratio of loaned funds to capital at a specific point in time. For instance, when considering the Earth's population, one would typically cite the current figure of 8 billion instead of the total cumulated population since the dawn of time. Therefore, the leverage ratio of 100:1, derived from dividing 300 billion by 3 billion in capital, represents the flow dimension leverage and does not accurately reflect the genuine leverage of Ant Group. A critical development occurred on December 1st, 2017, when the government issued the Notice on Regulating and Rectifying the Cash Loan Business, imposing restrictions on the turnover frequency of ABS products. Ant Group has also continued to increase its capital, which has already surpassed 3 billion long ago. The era of extreme 100:1 leverage has long since ended. Huang also mentioned in his speech that Ma later reached an agreement with the China Securities Regulatory Commission, limiting Ant Group's ABS products to a maximum of 3 turnovers.
最多不能超过4倍，就不能转4次。后来马云他们自己跟我讲了一下，他说我们商量下来4倍也不要，你给我们4倍，我们就做3倍。
So, what is Ant Group's true current leverage ratio? Online sources claim it to be 60 times. How is this figure calculated? According to Ant Group's prospectus, as of June 30th, 2020, the credit balance of the Ant microloan platform stood at 2,153.7 billion yuan. The combined net worth of Ant Group's 2 small loan companies amounted to 35.83 billion yuan. Therefore, dividing 2,153.7 billion yuan by 35.83 billion yuan yields 60.1, indicating a leverage ratio of 60 times. However, this calculation oversimplifies the situation, because 98% of Ant's 2.15 trillion credit balance is derived from the 1869.6 billion yuan contributed by over 100 cooperative banks and the 241 billion yuan from ABS business. Only 2% of the total comes from loans issued by Ant Group's small loan companies, which amounts to 431 billion yuan. Should the credit scale of cooperative banks be factored into the calculation of Ant Group's leverage? According to Ant Group's prospectus, customers initiate loan requests through Ant Group's technology platform, and bank partners make independent loan credit decisions and issue loans. Ant Group provides these partners with program support, including financial technology, customer access, and risk management, then charges technical service fees based on the scale of loans facilitated. In essence, Ant provides cooperative banks with technical advisory services like risk assessment, but does not provide financial guarantees for the money loaned by these banks. Ant Group referred to this aspect of the business as loan assistance. Since the government strengthened supervision of the cash loan business at the end of 2017, Ant has transitioned from a self-operated model to one of open collaboration. Ma has consistently stated that Ant Group's vision is to let credit equal wealth. During its self-operated phase, Ant Group borrowed from commercial banks, lent it to users, and retained the profits after repaying the bank's principal and interest. After transitioning to an open collaboration model, Ant Group has assumed the role of technical consultant for cooperative banks, levied technical service fees while leaving the associated risks to be borne by the banks themselves. Consequently, many argue that the credit scale of Ant Group's cooperative banks, totaling $1,169.6 billion, should not factor into its leverage calculations. Why then do over 100 cooperative banks seek Ant Group's expertise as a technical consultant? The key lies in Ant's possession and utilization of big data and unique algorithms, which effectively minimize the bad debt rates for credit loans. The government, recognizing the importance of credit loans in addressing the challenges faced by small and micro enterprises, has facilitated the growth of Ant Group. The cooperative banks also rely on the technical expertise of Ant Group to effectively manage the risk of their credit loan operations. Furthermore, the inclusion of outstanding ABS balances in Ant Group's leverage ratio is also subject to scrutiny. As of the end of October 2020, the scale of Ant's outstanding ABS stood at 241 billion yuan. If Ant Group had explicitly stated in the ABS securities issuance agreement that investors would bear the risk of principal and interest recovery, along with benefiting from high interest rates, then Ant Group effectively transferred the risk of the 241 billion yuan loan to investors. In that case, this loan should not be factored into the calculation of Ant Group's leverage. So, excluding the 1869.6 billion yuan from the credit scale of cooperative banks and the 241 billion yuan from the outstanding ABS balance, Ant Group's actual leverage is only 43.1 billion yuan divided by 35.83 billion yuan, which equates to 1.2 times. Even if we include the outstanding ABS balance, Ant Group's leverage would be 43.1 billion yuan plus 241 billion yuan, divided by 35.83 billion yuan, which equates to 7.93 times. However, there's no need to exonerate Ant Group. Regardless of whether its leverage ratio should be directly considered as Ant Group's, its business activities have indeed heightened the leverage of the entire economy, consequently amplifying systemic risks. To mitigate these risks, it's imperative to regulate the actions of the leverage creator, Ant Group. Apart from its technological prowess, another significant reason why Ant Group's credit lending hasn't collapsed over the years is the sustained upward trajectory of China's economy until 2020, where the accumulation of wealth could offset risks. However, should the economy experience a downturn, the substantial scale of Ant Group could potentially trigger another subprime mortgage crisis. Furthermore, despite Ant's claimed focus on serving small and micro enterprises, a closer look at the data reveals a different reality. Of the total 2.1537 trillion yuan loans extended by Ant Group, a staggering 80%, 1.732 trillion yuan, constitutes consumer loans, while a mere 20%, 421.7 billion yuan, is allocated to small and micro business owners. This discrepancy highlights one of the key criticisms leveled against Ant Group. On the evening of July 7, 2023, the National Financial Regulatory Administration, the Central Bank of China, and the China Securities Regulatory Commission simultaneously released statements declaring that the majority of significant issues within Ant Group had been addressed, signaling a transition to regular supervision from then onwards. Alibaba's stock witnessed a remarkable surge immediately following the release of statements by regulatory authorities. Some may question how Ant Group's penalization resulted in a favorable market response and boosted confidence in its stocks. The official statement released confirmed that Ant Group had successfully implemented the required reforms, marking a milestone that Alibaba and Ant Group have emerged from their most difficult times, and the chapter sage regarding Ma's speech has also turned the page. Moving forward, it's smooth sailing ahead for Ma, leaving the formidable challenges he faced behind as mere echoes in the distance. On March 27, 2023, Ma, who had been absent from the public eye for an extended period, finally made an appearance in Hangzhou, visiting Cloud Valley, Yungu, the educational institution he co-founded with Alibaba's top executives. Some joked that Ma had thrown in the towel regarding Alipay, following the central bank's approval on December 29, 2023. This approval signified Alipay's transition to a structure without an actual controller, indicating that its future operational decisions would be collectively made by all shareholders, rather than being directed by any individual or group. In reality, there have long been accusations that Ma was manipulating the capital market to seize public wealth. Stepping down as Alibaba's CEO in 2013 and announcing his complete retirement in 2019, it's not known for sure whether Ma's actions were prompted by mounting pressure or simply as a gesture to make way for the younger generation. Nevertheless, even in retirement, Ma remains a perpetual partner of Alibaba Group, ensuring his ongoing involvement in the company's future endeavors. Looking back on Ma's decades of entrepreneurship, he invoked the incantation Alibaba to unlock the gates of the e-commerce world for the Chinese people, and heralded a new era of financial technology in China with the emblematic Ant. However, his legacy is also entangled in controversy. In April 2019, amidst widespread discontent among young people due to the grueling 996 work culture, that is, to work 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week, Ma remarked at an internal company meeting that being able to work 996 was a result of bestowed fortune and accumulated blessings, something many companies and individuals could only aspire to but is unable to achieve. Over time, Jack Ma's nickname evolved from Daddy Ma to Vampire Ma, perhaps symbolizing the inevitable transition from a human to a capitalist.